Top 10 Facts about Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was one of the most well-known and controversial American politicians of the 20th century's second half. Nixon first appeared on the political scene shortly after World War II, when he was elected to the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate from California. His political career came to an end in August 1974, when he resigned in the midst of the Watergate scandal. In the interim, Nixon rose to become one of the world's most famous figures and a fixture in national politics. Here are 10 facts about his turbulent career that you may or may not be aware of. Number 1. Nixon had a chance to attend Harvard but had to decline. Richard Nixon finished third in his class and was offered a tuition grant to Harvard, but his family required him to stay at home. Number 2. Nixon was a lieutenant commander in the Navy during World War II. He held a number of administrative positions but saw no combat during his time in the Pacific. Number 3. Richard Nixon almost became an FBI agent in the 1930s. Nixon applied to the agency but never received a response. He had been hired, but budget cuts forced him to resign. Number 4. Nixon survived two potentially fatal political losses in 1960 and 1962. Many political observers predicted Nixon's career was over after defeats in the presidential campaign against John F. Kennedy and the 1962 California governor's race. After a hard-fought campaign in 1968, he became president within 6 years. Number 5. Nixon used the comedy show, Laugh-In, to get elected. At least, that's what Nixon reportedly said after making a cameo appearance on the show just weeks before the 1968 presidential election. Hubert Humphrey refused to appear on the show in a similar capacity. Number 6. Nixon was the first president to visit a nation not recognized by our own government. Nixon's visit to China in 1972 was notable because the U.S. recognized Taiwan as the legitimate government of mainland China. Number 7. Nixon may have had royal blood. Nixon is said to be descended from King Edward III of England through his maternal grandfather. Whether or not Nixon had royal ancestors, he had a royal surname. Richard the Lionheart inspired the future president's name. Except for Francis, who was given the name of his father, each of Nixon's 4 brothers was given the names of English kings. Number 8. Lee Harvey Oswald may have plotted to assassinate Nixon. Richard Nixon rode through Dallas to the airport early on November 22, 1963, after attending a Pepsi-Cola board meeting. Nixon witnessed the preparations for the motorcade that would carry John F. Kennedy, the man he had defeated for the presidency 3 years before, through the streets of the city's downtown. When Nixon arrived in New York, he learned that Kennedy had been assassinated in that motorcade. In another coincidence, Lee Harvey Oswald's wife testified to the Warren Commission in April 1963 that the alleged assassin read a local newspaper report, tucked a pistol in his belt, and told her, "Nixon is coming. I'd like to go take a look." After locking him in a bathroom, Oswald's wife persuaded him to hand over his gun. Nixon was not in Dallas in April 1963, according to the account, and no newspaper mentioned any visit. Number 9. Milhouse was his mother's maiden name. Nixon got his unusual middle name from his mother's side of the family. Nixon's ancestors changed their surname from Milhausen to Milhouse when they moved from Germany to England in the 1600s. Number 10. Nixon was a Quaker. Hannah Nixon, Nixon's mother, was a devout Quaker who instilled the faith in her husband and children. After his father's lemon grove in Yorba Linda, California, failed, Nixon and his family relocated to the nearby Quaker community of Whittier, named after one of America's most eminent Quakers, poet John Greenleaf Whittier. Nixon attended Quaker meetings 4 times on Sundays as a child and played the piano at church services. He enrolled at Whittier College, a Quaker school, and attended daily chapel services. That's it for our 10 interesting facts about Richard Nixon. Thanks for watching and please subscribe to not miss any new videos.